This is Kim DeBosier, co-chair of the Tampa Bay Chamber's Policy Council. I want to thank and welcome the viewers tuning in to our 2020 virtual candidate forum series. The Tampa Bay Chamber focuses on policy, not politics. And while we do not endorse, we want to make sure that our members and the business community are informed on where candidates stand on issues that are important to business. So today we're excited to have candidates for the Pasco Board of County Commissioners, District 5, with us. So I would like to welcome Brandi Geoit and Victor Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us. All right, so can you each give us a brief 60 seconds or less update on your campaign and what message you want to deliver the voters in this final stretch? And we'll start with Ms. Geoit.
Well, we're going in November, so our election is in November. So we're not in our final stretch yet.
That's true with yours, yes.
Yes. So one of the things is it's basically we need to actually start working for the people of Pasco County. I'm tired of hearing that it's an east side versus a west side issue when really it's about we continue to develop along the 54 corridor, but yet neglecting a lot of our business districts that we do have, in particular in District 5, which is the US 19 corridor. And it's important for us to remember we must maintain a lot of the things that we have, because bright, shiny, and new is all well and good, but if we're not maintaining what we have, we're not going to bring in those tourist dollars. We're not going to bring in all of those things that help to actually drive on an economy, especially in this new normal that we're dealing with. And we are dealing with a lot of different things going on with the current pandemic. So.
Great. And Mr. Rodriguez. Oh, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll piggyback on that. I think my biggest concern right now too is having about half our percentage of population living in poverty or below poverty. That in itself is terrible. Nobody wants to admit that. That's currently on the board. Everything is fine and dandy for them. Like Brandi said, in the 54 corridor, the West of Chapel corridor, those areas are they're doing well, and those people aren't seeing the hurt that the West Pasco side is actually seeing. So that is a great concern of mine. We can bring all the tourism we want here. If we don't take care of those people, people aren't going to want to come visit. We don't want to see people begging for money on the side of the road and stuff. So that's a big issue that I have and that I'll bring to the board if I'm elected and make sure that we get this thing cleaned up.
Great, good, thank you. So let's talk about jobs. How can county government use its authority and its resources to direct job growth? So let's go ahead and start with you, Mr. Rodriguez.
So one of the roles that the county could use, and I've been studying a lot, is the opportunity zones that were brought in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Opportunity zones are huge. That I feel that we can bring in corporations and businesses that can invest into our community and educate our people here so that they can get jobs that will afford to pay them a living wage and get them out of that poverty line. Currently, there's a lot of jobs that are being brought in from the Pasco EDC that are jobs that they can't even afford to live in these areas like the 54 corridor and the West of Chapel area. So that's a big thing with me, and that's what I'm going to push to try to get companies to come in and do.
All right, great. And Ms. Geoit.
All right. Well, when we're looking at what's going on here in Pasco County, with especially dealing with the new normal, we talk to a lot of individuals, and I've been talking to a lot of individuals. Even working online for a lot of them has become a barrier because employers are asking that they have no distractions at their homes, which means no children. So what do you do when daycares don't have availability for those parents that don't have a place for their child to go? These are things that we as a county need to start looking at. Are we going to start to open up different hub sectors? What are we going to do in order to practice the social distancing? What are we going to do to help improve a lot of these things? 46% of this county lives at or below the federal poverty level. These are things that the ALICE study has shown us. Restaurants and retail are great, but at the same time, we need to start looking at a lot of our unions, which the union houses are over in Tampa, ways of bringing them here because the kids can't get there. When we're talking about all of these individuals that are working in the tech schools and stuff like that, and I've talked to a lot of those students, they didn't know that there was an electrical workers union. They didn't know that these unions were out there to help them get those jobs that start them out at $18 to $25 per hour. These are things that we need in order to help raise people up out of poverty, but we're not thinking outside the box.
Great, thank you. Let's talk about home rule. Local governments across the state have been very critical of the legislature in recent years, suggesting that there is a Tallahassee knows best mentality that is threatening home rule. First, do you agree that this is the case? And if you do, how would you as a county commissioner work to establish a productive relationship with our legislative delegation? And if not, then how do you explain some of the legislation filed in recent years that handicaps local governments? Let's start with Ms. Geoit.
Well, I actually just helped the citizens of Port Richey when the state government attempted in a horrible overreach in dissolving their city. When basically they tried to call the city corrupt, they tried to dissolve it, they tried to take it over. And the citizens of Port Richey didn't want that. So I showed them how to fight City Hall. And it's a frustration when we talk about a government has to have the consent of those that it governs. They didn't want to fall under the county rules. They liked their extra services they received in their municipality. I helped them to fight the state legislature, and they asked me what will happen when you're in if we have to fight you. And I said, if you have to fight me when I'm in to basically give you the services that you are entitled to and that you deserve, then I shouldn't be in office. I shouldn't be doing that, because home rule is basically a way for us to set the standards, because every county is different. Every single county has different issues, different aspects, and different things that make them great. And our state legislature, as much as they cringe whenever I have to go up and ask them questions they don't want to answer, they do answer them and they do research them. It's our job to hold them accountable for when they do that horrible government overreach, which is what I showed the citizens of Port Richey in how to fight that.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, what do you think about home rule? I'm afraid we might have lost him. He might have dropped off.
Do we give him a second to come back?
Yeah, let's give him a moment. All right, well, we'll go ahead. We'll come back for that one. Okay, I'll just mark that one, and we'll do that when he gets back in. So we'll keep talking about that, about another thing. So most critical issues, of all the issues confronting Pasco County, which single issue is most important to you and why? And what would you do about it if elected?
Well, the first issue we have to work on here is poverty and how that impacts everything else in Pasco County. And why it's important to me. Well, I did social work for over 20 years. So I'm used to dealing with the government red tape. I'm used to fighting City Hall. I'm used to basically helping individuals get back on their feet. And people look at me and they go, oh, well, and I said, here's the thing. I've had to fight the VA. I've had to fight Social Security for people. I've had to do all of these things because people need help. The government systems are set up for them to fail. And when we continue to do that, it continues to impact quality of life. We have a lot of quality of life issues here. They go down to our issues with water quality, directly connected to quality of life issues. If you don't have the individuals to pay into the property tax, to pay into the sales tax, to pay into these things that a government requires, then you're going to continue to have all of these things that are falling short. When we talk about ways of trying to give people a hand up, it's time for us to actually acknowledge that maybe our county shouldn't be involved in the homeless issue because they don't know best. They don't understand what it takes to actually run a homeless shelter and run it efficiently, because we need one here. We need one here as a way to actually get people into systems. Because if we don't have that portal in, people are going to continue to fall and drop off and fall through the cracks, which is what we see a lot of here in Pasco County. So the first thing I would do is tell our commissioners, let's check our egos and actually listen to the homeless service providers, listen to the providers of these services on what the best practices are to help people get out of those situations, to help people rise up. Because our workforce are these individuals, and we want to make life better for them, because when you have a great and productive and healthy workforce, the entire economy boosts.
Great. Very good. And I think we've got Mr. Rodriguez back.
Yay! Oh, there he is.
There he
I'm
is.
sorry.
You're back. Okay, so we're gonna go back and ask you two questions. She just wrapped up on this one, and then we'll go back to the previous.
No problem.
Oh, okay. All right. So all the issues confronting. Got a little feedback.
Yeah.
Is that from me or you?
It's from Victor. Take your phone and hit your electronic away from where you're broadcasting from.
Yeah, it
Oh,
should be better now.
okay. All right. So still got a little bit happening. Are you using your phone or?
Yeah, I'm on the phone. It made me dial in though.
Okay. Then make sure that is your computer muted?
Is that better?
Let's see, will that be better? Yes, I think that'll do it. Perfect. Okay, so of all the issues confronting Pasco County, which single issue is most important to you and why? What would you do about it if you're elected?
Well, like I said earlier, my biggest concern with Pasco County is the poverty. And what I would do to work there is I would first look at ways to bring some better programs to the constituents here in Pasco County and getting them assistance. Secondly, I would also look to bring, like I said before, better paying jobs. Jobs that are going to invest in the individuals themselves and educate them and get them, so that they can get another step up in life, not just a dead end job where they're just working 9 to 5 and struggling to, help their kids with schoolwork when they get home from work. And third would be to try to create a program where we can build some facilities, so we can help house the individuals that, fall short, that are working paycheck to paycheck and end up in the streets and in the woods living. We can't have that, and we've had it for far too long. It's been an issue for the last 2 election cycles here in District 5. So those are main concerns of mine that I would bring when I'm elected to the board.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the question that we missed there for you, and it's on home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years, suggesting that there's a sort of a Tallahassee knows best mentality that is threatening home rule. Do you agree that this is the case? And if you do, how would you as a county commissioner work to establish a more productive relationship with our legislative delegation? If you don't think that that's true, then how would you explain some of the legislation filed in recent years that handicaps local governments?
Well, that is a good point that you bring up. The legislation that has been passed has kind of handicapped us, here on the local level on what we can do. And I would, hope to work and get through to these people that what has been going on for the past 40 years here in Pasco hasn't worked, and it has put us where we are now. And so I would just hope and pray that these individuals, listen and actually, take that to Tallahassee with them and actually get some things done for the constituents of Pasco versus the select few.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Let's turn to transportation and talk about the MPOs. All right. So there's been a lot of discussion recently on merging MPOs and creating a regional planning group. As you know, MPOs are a federally mandated authority that plan transportation projects. So what are your thoughts on merging our region's MPOs? And we'll start with Ms. Geoit.
Well, I feel like that is a great idea because here's the thing. Our county brags that we are a bedroom community for Hillsborough, for Pinellas. We need to figure out a way to get people across those county lines while reducing the amount of traffic on the roads. We shouldn't just have a plan here for traffic safety that involves, well, let's just hope our numbers go down. We need to actually start involving in the planning. I'd like to see us start working with Hillsborough and Pinellas counties in a plan for a light rail project, something that can help transport people in a high-speed capacity. Because riding the buses, it can take you 3 hours to get across this county, let alone from somebody driving from Pasco into Pinellas. 3 hours on a bus both ways is not a good quality of life. We actually have to start thinking about other ways that we can get people back and forth, reducing our carbon footprint and transporting them safely and efficiently. And also looking at the fact that if we do have a light high-speed rail, we can actually evacuate more people during a hurricane. Because seeing what happened with I-75 and US 19 and all of our northbound roads during the last major evacuation, we had so many people running out of gas, stranded on the highway, families, that's just not a good situation for any county to be in. We need to be thinking about our constituents and thinking about the future instead of just saying eventually it's going to sort itself out. We have a lot of abandoned strip malls here that we could be using as rail stations as a way to actually start furthering that, following the tracks of US 19 or I-75 or maybe even the Suncoast as an extra alternative, because people need to get back and forth to work. And it's time for us to actually start looking at different funding sources and ways of getting them there.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, what are your thoughts on merging our region's MPOs?
I think merging our region's MPOs would be a good thing. I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from Hillsborough County and Pinellas County. Kind of, I mean, they've got some issues there themselves with traffic still, but I think Hillsborough County has done a very good job. So I think that would be a great thing. I for one, I don't think, you know, especially with the pandemic and everything that's going on, you know, packing people on high-speed rails and buses, you know, it's probably not the greatest thing right now because it'd be, you know, hard for them to get to work. But I think, you know, having a actual broad picture of planning for the future when we're doing our roads and not just doing for currently what's here. I've seen it time and time again growing up here in Pasco County since '91. We've done, you know, roads where we go back a year later and we're tearing them up just to add another lane. So I think a comprehensive plan of planning for the future, it widening the roads, bringing jobs to Pasco County so we don't have so much traffic trying to leave the county. I think that is the more comprehensive plan of looking at our picture and our traffic problems currently.
Okay, well, let's turn our attention to the budget. A key duty of county commissioners is to construct, approve, and implement a budget. So what one area of county services would you feel most needs additional resources? And should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? So we'll start with you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, so I think one of the major areas for our budget is our roads that, you know, are huge and, you know, the flooding that's going on here that has been ongoing for, you know, the last, you know, 12 years. I think that's one where we can put some more money to and making sure that we do it, you know, the right way. One of the areas that I wouldn't touch would be the sheriff's budget. I think there's ways that, you know, we could find alternative routes to getting funding, especially with the Bureau of Justice assistance programs that are out there with the current administration. Last year alone in 2019, they allocated over 30,000 awards totaling just under $12 billion of allocation. So I think going after those monies and resources there could be another alternative to where we could free up a lot of money in our budget.
Great. Ms. Geoit, the budget?
Well, roads are not considered a part of our county tax dollars here in Pasco County. That's a huge issue that we see when it comes to a lot of our infrastructure problems because roads and sidewalks are not included. When we're talking about where I would like to shield, I'd like to shield our actual infrastructure development, which is our wastewater treatment, because we constantly keep having a lot of places that are dumping sewage into our Gulf into the, water aquifer because they're not being maintained to the level that we should be. We shouldn't be constantly having the Environmental Regulations Commission out here talking to us about what's going on. That's one way we would actually be able to save money and be more cost effective, is if we're maintaining those plants and actually expanding them to the level of growth that we have. Now, areas that I would cut, I would be looking at where that deal is that the county commissioners made, and I'm still trying to find that under the Sunshine Law, that the sheriff gets 50% of all new revenue coming into this county. We are about to see a huge tax dollar decrease. We're seeing a decrease into gas tax because people are sheltering in place. We're seeing a decrease in sales tax revenue here in the county, even under our penny for Pasco, because people aren't spending because they don't have the money to spend. We need to start looking at where we can make those tough cuts. First thing I would be looking at with the sheriff's budget, because I live in Embassy Hills, why do we need helicopters out patrolling 7 nights a week? And sometimes during the day, we hear them, but we don't see squad cars. We have these issues and things like that. And also when I do talk to a lot of the residents, we talk about the fact that the sheriff says that they don't run radar. They don't have radar certified officers. This is a huge barrier towards a lot of crime prevention. There are things that we could be doing better and being more penny wise and less pound foolish when it comes to how we spend our tax dollars.
Great, thank you. Equity. Name one issue in Pasco County that directly impacts or is directly impacted by racial inequity, and explain how the county can incorporate an equity framework in addressing this issue. So we'll start with Ms. Geoit.
Well, we have a lot of issues with racial inequality as well as issues in regards to the LGBTQIA+ community inequality issues. We have a large LGBTQIA+ community as well as African American community and Hispanic community here in Pasco County. We have a lot of different individuals. We are a diverse group in Pasco County. We need to actually pass a human rights ordinance, and I am very proud that the sheriff has decided to stop investigating their own shootings of individuals and it's going on to the FDLE. That is a step forward. We are looking at a lot of our issues here where we're like, well, it is what it is, and it's a huge problem. And people tell me all the time, oh, well, that doesn't exist here. I live in Port Richey. There was a cross burning here a few years ago. The Aryan Nation was arrested by FDLE several years ago for having a lot of pipe bombs and things like that. We need to actually start addressing and listening to individuals that are experiencing racism as well as inequity. We need to start talking to them and bringing them to the table and having a lot more of our boards being diverse. I'm tired of seeing the same faces on a lot of our community development boards, our housing board. Everything else should be more diverse in its representation, because when you have diverse voices at the table, you have a more rounded representation. Continuing to pass and have the same people on there over and over and over again isn't bringing us forward. It's just keeping us where we are. So I'd like to pass a human rights ordinance here, and I'd like to actually start bringing more people to the table.
Great. And Mr. Rodriguez, can you
Can you repeat the question again? I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. Name one issue in Pasco County that directly impacts or is directly impacted by racial inequity, and explain how the county can incorporate an equity framework in addressing this issue.
Well, this will probably surprise you, but I'm going to say here is the actual schooling. Our schools here in Pasco, if you look at them, some of the worst ones are right here in District 5. And if you look at the actual makeup of those schools, the demographic, a lot of them have minorities in those schools. Our schools aren't getting better; they're getting worse. And the schools that are getting better are the ones on the 54 corridor, in the Trinity areas, Wesley Chapel, in the areas, and that's where most of the money is being allocated to. New schools are being built. So that, to me, is one of the biggest things. It starts there, education, and right now we are failing, in that area. So I would like to see, more collaboration with the Board of County Commissioners and the school board and the superintendent making sure that this gap is closed, because if we don't close that gap, it's going to continue on as the individuals get older and become, productive members of society. So that's where my mindset is on that situation.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about housing in Pasco County. Housing affordability advocates show up in strong numbers to Board of County Commission meetings, and they highlight some staggering numbers that suggest that if we don't act now, we may have a housing crisis in our community. Do you think we have a housing affordability crisis? And if so, what policy measures should be in place to address it? Let's go ahead, Mr. Rodriguez. You can take that one first.
Yeah, I absolutely think there is an issue there. With, like I said before, with the jobs that are being provided through the Pasco EDC in a lot of these corridor areas, the jobs that they're coming out with, the numbers don't even add up to being able to afford an actual mortgage in those areas, let alone in these other areas where you have people that are living in poverty or below poverty. So I think there should be some measures in place where the board is actually looking at the numbers that are being put in front of them before they say yes or no to these loans and these actual grants that are given out to the companies. I think there has to be a comprehensive plan of, what homes you're bringing into the area and who they are going to. I mean, you can't build $200,000 homes all over the place and expect people to have them without the job. So I would look to see, somehow where we can work together and figure out, bringing in affordable housing, whether it's, working with the federal government. But we've got to do something. We can't continue the path that we're going.
Great, thank you. All right, Ms. Geoit.
Well, our county just passed a reduction in the impact fees for affordable housing production, which is very good, and it's a step forward. Because in the past, I've watched the county commissioners reject actual affordable housing units because of the NIMBYism. Basically, people saying, not in my backyard, they don't want to hear, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the thing. If we don't have affordable housing, we're going to continue to see an increase in individuals that are going to be homeless. We're going to continue to see all of these cracks in the system because we have no place for people to go. Rents should not be over $1,200 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment here on the west side. We shouldn't be focusing mainly on trying to basically bring in more individuals. We need to actually work to try and take care of the people we have here first before we start to recruit and bring in and build these fancy developments. I understand why our county commissioners would want to build these $200,000 to $800,000 homes. And they do this because an increase in population gives our county commissioners their pay raises. It's not quality of life indicators, which is what it should be. We should be looking at the affordable housing stock that we have here, because I know, working in social work, that all of our affordable housing units here are at capacity, and some of them have a 10-year waiting list just to get in there. Where do people go in those 10 years? What do they do while they're waiting on a Section 8 voucher? While they're waiting on a call from that apartment complex? Do they still even have the same phone numbers? How do you get in contact with these individuals? We have a lot of barriers in the system, and actually giving money and helping out the Pasco County Housing Authority with lobbying to the federal government in order to get those dollars to not only improve the units that we have, because the federal government took cuts from them and forced them to not improve the infrastructure over there of roofs and everything else, but to also help lobby for us to bring in affordable housing units. Being poor should not make you labeled as a horrible individual. Growing up in poverty is something that we need to actually start working on and start working towards the improvement of life, because getting help does not mean that you deserve to be vilified, which is what we do a lot of times at the county commissioners meetings. We hear it all the time of, let's lock up the homeless, let's incarcerate them because of the panhandling ordinance, let's continue to do all of this. Well, if we don't have places for them to go, where exactly are we expecting people to live?
Great, thank you. All right, and let's talk about health care. How can Pasco County improve mental health services in our community? And we'll go back to you, Ms. Geoit.
Well, we need actual more mental health providers, and a lot of it is going to be lobbying to our state legislature to actually increase the Medicaid dollars that we spend on psychologists as well as psychiatrists here in the state of Florida, because we continue to see Medicaid dollars being chiseled away, and the opportunities as well as all of the paperwork that they have to deal with, basically making it almost impossible for individuals to get mental health care. We can have people waiting 6 months just to get in for psychiatric medication evaluations, and then the provider has to cancel because either it's not worth their time, the insurance is no longer taken by them, and everything else like that. It's time for us to actually start lobbying our state legislature to hold these Medicaid HMOs responsible for what they're doing and their lack of a provider network. When we talk about what's happening here, I know Hillsborough County created its own healthcare plan to help out its individual citizens. Maybe Pasco needs to start doing that as well, because Good Samaritan, Premier, all of our community-based services that are there for healthcare are overwhelmed, and they only have so many dollars that they can spend, and they just took another cut. We're talking about what we need to do in order to keep people healthy and keep them active, and mental health is a disease. Mental illness is a disease. That's why it is called illness. And as we continue to defund and remove a lot of these services and make it harder and harder and harder for people to get into care, we need to actually start working on making sure our state is being held responsible for its role in how it has cut the mental health services.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, how can Pasco County improve mental health services?
Well, I think Pasco can improve mental health services by making the medication that these individuals need more affordable. I think we see a lot of individuals, they can't afford the medication that they're supposed to be on, so they opt out to not getting it so that they can pay their rent or their electric bill. So I think that's a big key. The second one is, having more programs in place and making sure that our state, the legislature understands, the need of it here in Pasco County. I would also say back to the Bureau of Justice Assistance Program, of that $11 billion that was awarded in the 30,000 awards that they gave out in 2019. There's a plethora of programs, and one of the ones is mental health that is in there. So with that being said, we understand that it is an issue here in Pasco. I'm sure our sheriff does too, Sheriff Naco. And I think if we can get the funding through there, it's another avenue to get money outside of having to deal with the state legislator that we can bring in to help here in our community.
Okay, thank you. So we have touched on some important policies, but before we wrap up, we want to make sure that you have a chance to talk about a priority that you have that we didn't discuss yet, but will be a focus for you during your campaign and on the board if elected. There's a catch up there if there's something we haven't yet discussed. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, so I would definitely like to hit on the transparency part of things. Our board right now currently is not transparent to our constituents here in Pasco County. They like to use a lot of graphs and charts, but that's all fine and dandy and pretty, to the normal citizen that's out there. But somebody that understands numbers and can plug them in and do some math, that is way more important to myself than, pie graphs and charts like that. So just being transparent, and just being honest with the people where the money is going. We've got Penny for Pasco that is being used, and there's money that's being allocated to ELAMP funds to purchase, wetlands and property that's in the middle of nowhere. But, the Ridge Road extension leads to that property, and you wonder why, we spent $25 million on a piece of property that is in the middle of nowhere. So just being honest and transparent on where our money's going and why we are doing things. I think that is very important. The people of Pasco deserve it. Like I said, I've been here since '91. I've lived here for 29 years. I grew up here. I went to school at Midi-Pelock, Gulf Middle School and Gulf High School. I've seen everything that is going on here, and I'm here to make a change. I want to step up and give back to my community, and I want to be transparent to everybody that is here in Pasco that we can make this a better place and make sure that we don't forget about the people that are hurting right now in Pasco.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Geoit?
Well, we would need to start talking about things that, like the new normal, the pandemic response that we had here in Pasco, and the constant belief that everything is going to be fine. It took one of our elected officials actually getting sick here in Pasco County before we mandated a mask ordinance. We currently have a county commissioner that doesn't believe that science is real and that public health, which should have never been politicized, is a big issue and concern. When we talk about a lot of our issues here, public health is a big part of it. A lot of our citizens here rely on our local health department for a lot of their services. And we need to actually start trusting the individuals within our county that are actual experts in these fields to actually dictate what it is that we do. Listen to them. Listen to the health department director about the importance of masking up. Listen to the individuals out there that are talking about airborne viruses, as well as a lot of our teams that have been tracking a lot of infectious diseases for years. People don't realize that this is a whole system that has been set up by individuals working on tracking HIV and AIDS, individuals working on tracking tuberculosis. All of these things we're going to be seeing, especially in our more impoverished areas, because of the fact that people can't afford health care. People can't afford it, so they're going without. So we're going to be seeing a lot of health issues and concerns in our area. So we need to actually start working on what's called environmental justice here, ways for us to improve the quality of the environment for those individuals in Pasco County that need that help. We need to start talking about all of the things we don't want to talk about, and talking to individuals about why they need to wear a mask. And I've actually had a lot of conversations with a lot of anti-maskers and gone back to my public health, ways when I worked with HIV and AIDS individuals and talked about condom usage. And they get really uncomfortable. And I said, here's the thing. I would rather have you be 98% safe than 0% safe. Masks are a barrier method. But at the same time, we need county officials that aren't afraid to actually have those conversations. Our county itself put that on our county administrator rather than what Hillsborough and Pinellas did, where they had open meetings and discussed this. And I know a lot of the Hillsborough County as well as Pinellas County representatives over there were having very angry individuals message them. But here's the thing. You have to make tough decisions when you are in government. It is not always easy, but you need to be there, you need to lead, and you need to be willing to represent. And sitting there and hiding behind an employee and putting them out as the individual that put the mandate out is not acceptable to the citizens of Pasco. So when we talk about a lot of the issues going on here and the transparency, we talk about a lot of the fact that we don't have actual elected leaders. And we need actual leaders, people who are willing to stand out in front of something and take that hit and make people not happy with those decisions. Because wearing a mask is not fun. I deal with it with my 6-year-old all the time, but I get her fancy masks and it makes her happy and she wears them. So.
Great, thank you. Well, finally, where can voters go to learn more about your campaign and your position on issues most important to them? Ms. Geoit first.
All right, you can go to my website, which is brandicampaign.com, B-R-A-N-D-I, because I'm Brandi with an I, or follow me on Facebook. I am literally the only Brandi Geoit in existence, so I'm very easy to find. Everybody looks at me and they laugh, and I'll be like, I'm Brandi with the strange last name. I've been born with it and had it my whole life, and I know I am the only one in existence. So I'm easy to find on Facebook, and a lot of constituents do message me about a lot of their issues that they're already dealing with and ways that I can help them. I've helped a lot of people. So if you're having problems with your unemployment, if you're having problems with your food stamp issues and stuff like that, feel free to message me on Facebook. I've been gladly taking a lot of calls and messages from constituents with issues that they're having within the county of Pasco.
Great. All right. And Mr. Rodriguez, where can voters go to learn more about you?
Voters can go to learn more about me to my website, which is voteforvic.org. And I'm also on Facebook, and that's, you could use the hashtag voteforvic for Pasco, and also Instagram, LinkedIn, and in Twitter actually as well. So we're on all those platforms, and we're out there, and we're trying to make a difference. So hopefully the constituents here in Pasco know that, and they do their research, and we get there November 3rd.
Well, on behalf of our 1,400 members and our board of directors, we want to thank you for joining us today and your willingness to serve as an elected official. So this concludes our candidate interview. Thank you.